This is With the First Pick, the CBS Sports NFL Draft Podcast. It's episode 103. That is Rick Spielman. I'm Ryan Wilson, and today it's Popper Drop Tuesday, Conference Championship Edition. We'll highlight some of the standouts from last weekend, including a sleeper of Florida State's defense. Let's be real, Rick. That's a program that could use some good news right about now. We'll spotlight a player from each game, and then like we always do on Tuesdays, we'll look at the rookie quarterback performances from around the NFL. I'll give you my top 5 NFL rookies from Week 13. And in case you're wondering, me and Debo intentionally did not ask Rick for his rookie rankings. You okay with that, Rick?
Yeah, because I'll do my own.
I don't need your own.
I'll just do my own. I don't need to be a part of your coup meetings on the side when I'm not around.
Coup meeting, COUP, and cool meeting, COOL. So keep working hard, and we'll invite you to the meetings. You did say that you did not want to do them out of protest, so that's why I saved you the trouble.
It's principles.
Just
like I will never, ever put a plus or minus. It's a principle in my mind right now.
That's right, for grades. But I thought you were going to say you will never, ever do a mock draft. We're going to trick you into doing a mock draft, so we're going to get you on that one.
Yeah, good luck.
All right, in case you missed it, in the feed right now our conference championship players to watch preview. And while conference title games are behind us, still worth your time because we're evaluating these guys that are going to be in the draft process as we go through this thing. And if you're watching us on the old YouTubes at NFL on CBS, well, we got here, Rick, on the official With the First Pick draft countdown board. How many days?
142 days until the 2024 NFL draft. 42 days until Ryan Wilson will get the truth on some of the comments that he makes. And I was just thinking, now this is where my mind goes sometimes, and I apologize out there.
Okay.
So as we count down like 142 days and we count up, so it's like 103rd podcast, right? Is that what you said?
We're going to meet.
What happens if they meet? Do we get anything, Debo? Do we get a gold watch or anything like that?
Who really wants this gold watch, Debo?
Gold watch is 1,000 episodes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you think on 100 episode that we would at least get a T-shirt or something. Hey, I survived 100 podcasts on CBS with the first pick. Or
nothing.
Nothing.
Debo's too busy doing his thing
and passing out homework. So while he's sitting there giggling, writing up, let me have these guys do this week.
Yeah, and we got some homework to talk about. Although the homework will be lessening, Rick, because the college football season, regular season, is effectively over. Army Navy coming up, but after that, we'll have a little break. I would think we'll see what Debo decides to do in terms of the homework side of that stuff. By the way, looking ahead,
do top 20 rookies each week just to kind of balance it out.
Just stretch it out, top 20. I have to do something for social later today about the top 10 rookies right now. Let me ask you this, Rick. Is this rookie class feel like it's better in terms of depth and production early on than in recent years, or is that just me paying attention this year?
Well, it's you're paying attention a little bit more since Debo gives you the homework assignment.
Right.
We didn't have to do this last year, to be honest with you. But it seems like rookies are having a bigger impact. And I think it's showing that it was a pretty strong draft class last year. And I think as we go through the process and 142 days from now and going into next year, this may, in my opinion, even be a stronger draft class than we saw last year.
Wow. And it's not just the quarterbacks, because there's only really one quarterback that's having a banner year. There's players at every position. Wide receiver, of course, we know about. Unfortunately, Tank Dell's hurt for the rest of the regular season, but there are other wide receivers balling out. Edge rushers, we'll talk about one today who's balling out. Offensive linemen who are day 3 guys, DeJuan Jones, who've been forced into starting roles and are playing extremely well. So it's been fun to watch, and just something that I noticed since we do, as you know, talk about these rookies all the time. By the way, Rick, looking ahead on Thursday.
And you know what? Just one thing. Now that we're doing all these rookies and watching it, it may help you when you start making comparisons when we get into the player comparisons into this year's draft class.
Yeah, it may. We'll see. I make no promises. It could still be terrible. Although you and I agreed on a couple of comps last week. So either you're getting worse and I'm getting better, or some combination of the two.
It's us working together as one.
Yeah. And that's actually something to be concerned about. We need to self-scout, because you don't want to have groupthink going into this thing and then
remember, my role on this podcast is just the scout in the corner raising his hand. You're the GM. I'm just waiting to add my 2 cents.
Chirping in the owner's ear. Don't forget that part.
Yeah, with the owner sitting next to me. You
All
believe
right.
what this Yahoo's doing right
Yeah, I
now?
know. You're not even kidding. I got my eye on you back there, Spielman. Later this week, by the way, Debo will be living his best life in Italy, no doubt. But we're going to talk about my mock draft 4.0, Rick, which was released on CBSSports.com today, Tuesday morning, as we record this. I would say it's some of my best work yet. You may disagree, but we'll talk about that, go into some
Did you
details
make
there.
any changes?
Yeah,
Are
no,
there
there's
any
some changes.
surprises?
I'll give you a sneak peek. I won't name names about the players taken, but I had a trade. The Patriots moved up from 2-1 with the Bears to get a quarterback, and then the Bears have some decisions to make. I'll even have the hypothetical draft capital trade breakdown, and you can evaluate that. I based it off of what the Bears did in 2017 when they moved it from 3-2 to get Mr. Trubisky, and I sweetened the pot a little bit, but we can talk about all that stuff on Thursday. So 4 quarterbacks go in the first round, all in the top 11. I think that may be a little rich.
Wow. Boy,
So
we're going to have a lot to talk about. I
yeah.
can't wait for the episode on Thursday.
So Thursday, circle back for that, make a note, and we can have Rick skewer me on each and every.
No, not skewer. Educate.
Educate.
Skewer doesn't happen for 42 more days.
42 self-esteem coach, and then things get real in 42 days. Remember, by the way, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to nominate FBS or FCS college player who is draft eligible, and we'll evaluate his draft prospects on an upcoming show. And by the way, quickly, Debo, at some point in the probably near future, we'll talk about the transfer portal guys / guys that are returning to school as part of the podcast journey.
Yeah, anything that's jumped out to you guys? Kyle McCord hitting the portal.
It's unbelievable. I think I read an article that over 1,000 kids entered the portal, which is I can't fathom that, because here's what I'm hearing out on the streets.
The streets.
As I work my way through, as I called it, the Seth pool. So that was the media to me when I was in a GM.
You're now in the middle of the cesspool.
Yeah. Well, isn't it Seth's pool?
Yeah.
Okay, I used to call it Seth pool, just so.
At least you didn't call it sex pool. So there's that.
But these kids better make sure that they have a place to go, because there ain't 1,000 better deals out there than maybe what they had. So you better have a couple of things in your pocket before you make those type of decisions. And especially the biggest news is the quarterbacks and how many. Cam Ward,
Ward,
we evaluated him.
Dylan Gabriel, we evaluated, is leaving Oklahoma.
Yeah. So they're either looking for, from what I hear, 7-figure deals in NILs.
Which is what Matt Rule, the head coach of Nebraska, said 1.5 to 2 million per year is about what it costs. I know that our Bud Elliott on the Cover 3 podcast, and those guys have been crushing it recently with all the news, said it's probably something a little less than that, but you're sniffing seven-figure territory. And the other thing that, according to Bud, that you're trying to figure out, if you're a school or whoever, I don't know if the boosters pay the money. I don't know how that works on the NIL end, but you don't want to pay for a Cam Ward, for example, to come to a school that's going to win 5 football games, because you're just blowing money and not winning the national title. So these are all national title conversations as well.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that, and why it's such the wild, wild west, not to go on a tangent here, is, if you want to try to compare it to free agency in the NFL, but you're dealing with the same agents. So,
yeah,
when you're talking and the guy's telling you, yeah, this guy's worth 10 million, 10 million, 10 million. When you're trying to make decisions from a GM seat, you have a jumping point where you're going to get off of that deal. And you got to be disciplined to that, even though all the outside noise coming in. And that agent better not be lying to you, because if he says he has X and you offered Y, and then he goes, well, we're going to this team, and he gets Y instead of X, well, you're still going to have to deal with that agent down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to have other players that you're going to have to deal with. So the agent and the teams have to be pretty transparent. Now, there's always going to be haggling and a little bit of cat and mouse game. But if they're saying X and you're in a whole different stratosphere, and that X comes down to your stratosphere, and he went and signed with another team, and that agent was lying, well, there's an issue going forward with that agent. From how I understand it, it's when you say that you have $1 million NIL deal and it gets reported, but there's no you can't see what they actually got. You can say that's what they got.
Oh, I see.
But in the NFL, the contract actually goes to the management council. It has to get approved. So all those numbers and data are with the team. The team can get access to all that. NIL deals, colleges can't get access to the actual numbers on the NIL deal.
Interesting. So this is like when I would tell my parents I got all A's on my report card before the report card got there, and they're like, "Wait a second, those A's look a lot like D's."
Well, I would give you a C, but no pluses or minuses.
No pluses or minuses. Interesting. So they're not showing their work. That's a whole other thing to sort out. All right. Well, that's something that we'll put on the to-do list because that is certainly interesting and annually changes the landscape of college football.
So
Hey, Ryan,
go ahead, Debo. You're
I was just gonna say, I'm sorry. Chop Robinson opted out of the Peach Bowl today, and I actually was texting back and forth with Rick this morning to get his take, and he said he dropped him all the way down to day 3.
Well, you know what's funny, Debo? I think Rick is softening on this stance because he hemmed and hawed when we mentioned maybe Caleb doesn't play in the bowl game, whether he should or not. The Holiday Bowl against Louisville, I believe. You're okay with him opting out of that, or should he play in that?
Yeah, I'm getting softer in my old age, so I think still if it's a New Year's Day 6 bowl, you should play.
Yeah,
but talking about, no offense to the back in the day, the Blue Bonnet Bowl.
yeah.
I don't know how much you're going to be able to approve in a Blue Bonnet Bowl.
I'll just say this: if you are Ryan Poles or Bill Belichick, you probably don't want Caleb Williams playing in that bowl game.
Probably not.
Yeah, so you're okay with that. All right. Finally, give us all a thumbs up on the YouTube machine. Spread the word. Let's get to it, Rick. Let's talk conference championship pop or drop. Let's start with Texas, Oklahoma State. And a guy we talked about over the summer that we liked a lot, tight end Jatavian Sanders. We've talked about Adonai Mitchell, who had a huge game. We've talked about Xavier Worthy and Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers looks like he's probably returning to school. But let's talk about Sanders, the tight end. Plays a lot of in-line. They use him to block a lot. I wish they wouldn't do that because he's not blocking as well as I would like him to block. The funny thing is you watch him, let's say he blocked on 40 snaps this game. On about 8 of them, he looked like he knew what he was doing. The others, I was like, okay, he's either technically not doing what he's supposed to do, he's not strong enough, or it's just not working out for him. So I don't know if that's something that'll fix itself down the line. We talked about Brock Bowers coming back last year and certainly being better blocker this year. But if you're drafting Sanders, you're not drafting him to block people. He had 8 catches for 105 yards. One of them was he got wide ass open for an easy 25-yard flea flicker. That wasn't necessarily the toughest play he made, probably the easiest catch he's had in his career. But he showed the ability to stack defensive backs in the middle of the field when he's running those seam routes. He can run away from guys. He has a little wiggle for his size, and I thought he ran through arm tackles. And again, I like him. Like, I don't know who tight end 2 is going to be at this point. He's not a first-round pick unless something changes, but I think he's a day 2 guy who can come in and help in much the same way we've seen these day 2 tight ends in recent years come in and be contributors.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the, like, to me, if you want to make a compare, Laporta was better, even though he didn't have the same production.
Yep.
And he went 2nd round to Detroit. And he's lighting the world on fire in the NFL right now.
Should have been a top 5 pick.
Yeah. So maybe we got to redraft the redraft we did, Debo. We get a chance. But I saw all the same things. I saw the athleticism as a receiver. I saw the wide open double reverse pass that no one was guarding him. They threw him a lot of bubble screens, which he does have some wiggle to him. And he is a pretty smooth athlete getting upfield after the catch. You see some speed. I just don't see anything. It's good, but to me, I'm just trying to think, is there anything unique? Like, I thought Kincaid was unique in some of the things he did as a receiver.
Yep.
I think this guy's going to be a good pro. He's going to be a solid starter in the league, but I just can't buy into the uniqueness of taking him in the 1st round. But I could see him as a solid day 2 pick.
Here's my comp, and you can get your grippy ball. And it came to mind because I actually saw this guy play a lot over the weekend because of injury. Little Brevin Jordan out of Houston, went to Miami, plays for the Texans now.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. I really agree with that.
Do you think Sanders is more athletic? What are you making faces about?
No, 42 days, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I think that's a great comparison.
Well, okay. I don't know if I know that's not helpful. I don't know how serious you are to scale of 1 to 10.
What are you talking about? I am very sincere. I would never be sarcastic on the show at all.
Yeah, you can find Rick on Twitter at HallmarkLover420 as his acting props continue to get better. All right, day 2 guy for Jatavian Sanders. I think we both took something away from that game, and that he's a really good football player and has a chance to be a good NFL player.
Yeah.
Again, Adonai Sanders balling out. Where are you on Adonai Sanders as a first round pick? The number 5, the big wide receiver that we've talked about before.
I think he'll be in the mix of that second tier of guys.
Mhm.
I don't know if I would put him up there with the Odunzes of the world and
No.
and the neighbors. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where your mind is. Half the time we're talking about
half the time. That sounds low. I'll say this, and we'll talk about this on Thursday. My mock draft, I have to go check, but I think I had like 6 or 7 potential wide receivers going in the first round, which sounds insane, but there are a lot of good ones.
I could see that. And I was one of the guys that we going to talk about here was very impressive.
Ooh. All right, before we get to him, let's go to Alabama, where the old Alabama Crimson Tide somehow found their way into the Final Four. Despite,
did you agree with that or disagree with that? There were
I don't have any real. I don't have
mean,
any real take on that. I do feel bad for our colleague Danny Cannell and Bryant McFadden, who played at Florida State, because they got absolutely screwed. And Danny's been going on this.
Oh my God, is he
he's
on
everywhere. He's everywhere. Debo, where are you on the college football playoff system? Do you feel bad for Danny and BMAC, or do you understand how this thing works?
Florida State got robbed.
Come on,
They did.
Huh?
That committee is a joke. That committee is a joke.
Debo's mad. They were undefeated. They won their conference. What else are they supposed to do, Rick?
What else, Rick?
The best 4 teams in the Final Four.
That's not true. If they did the best 4, it would be Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah.
I would listen to that argument, because that's a legit argument. But I think Ohio State should have had was above Florida State, because I think they got an excellent football team. I think Alabama, the way they're playing, and then Pete, I'm going to argue with Pete Prisco till it's blue in the face, because you might as well just argue to the screen I'm talking to, because you're going to get more common sense out of the screen than out of Pete Prisco. True. He says they're like a Hail Mary pass away from not being in the playoffs. But Alabama, the way that Milroe has improved, the way they're playing right now, you got to say they're one of the best 4 teams they got in. I think they did a fine job, although I would have put Ohio State or
Over
Georgia,
who?
Texas.
Over Texas. Yeah, see, I don't know, man. I get it. It's all about money and power and politics. That's how that. If you come at it from that angle.
Will you think there'll be as much scrutiny or as much controversy next year when they expand it?
But I'm sure they'll find something to be angry about. People generally find something to be angry about. But I guess you get the top 8 right, and then you got to figure out the people at the bottom, the 6 out of the next 4, who's going to be angry about that. All right, we'll worry about that next year. Alabama, huge win. Jalen Milroe, as you talked about, had a really good game, and we'll be talking about him a lot over the next 12 months, I would imagine. I'll just say this, Rick, and I mentioned to you before the podcast, I'm going to go on record now. Don't clip it, Debo, in case I'm really, really wrong. But I think Jalen Milroe is going to be the best quarterback on the field when they face Michigan in a few weeks. I'll just say that now. But let's talk about Dallas Turner's teammate, the edge rusher, who, when you refused to join us when we talked to Will Anderson a few weeks ago, he said that at this point in his journey, Will thinks that Dallas is a smarter football player than Will was at Alabama. And he said he and Dallas talk all the time, and he's really impressed with what he's doing. And I get that, because I didn't realize how strong Dallas Turner was until I turned on this game to watch. Amarius Mims left in the first quarter with an ankle injury. That's been a recurring theme, unfortunately, for him. What's that?
Shocking, but go ahead.
Yeah, he just hasn't stayed healthy this year. The right tackle for Georgia, so we got to figure that out. But Dallas Turner was eating up the left tackle for Georgia, and he was killing him with a long arm, and the power just jumped off the screen, and he did it continuously, and he was such a problem on that side of the football. And he's also a good athlete. Like, he shows the ability to drop into space. He wanted to cover in the flat, and on one little quick flat to Brock Bowers, which he didn't get the ball, he was running with him there, so that's impressive as well. But Dallas Turner, we talked about this. Does he remain now after this weekend your edge rusher 1? Because he looks like it.
Yeah, in my opinion, he's edge rusher one. The way he played in the Auburn game, the way he played now. I'm anxious to see him against Michigan because I think that he's going to create some havoc in that game. But you don't realize how big this kid. He looks lean and wiry when you watch him on TV, on tape. But just like we talked about, Will Anderson he is very thick through his legs and almost like running back thickness. And that's what there was a Will Anderson. Well, he only weighs 240. This kid weighs 255. He doesn't
Mhm.
look like it, but he's going to come in at 255, and I would have a tough time, and you know how big a fan I was of Will Anderson coming out last year. If those two were there, I would
Oh,
maybe lean to Dallas Turner over Will Anderson. That's how good I think this kid's going to
wow.
be.
All right, that's a clip for Debo to put out there on the social media machines. That's impressive. And
And
look,
then
Will
we'll never
Anderson might
get
not
Will
disagree with you.
Anderson on another interview for the rest of our lives. So go ahead and clip that, Debo, if you want to keep killing people that potentially come on the podcast.
Will Anderson might not disagree with you. He had very high praise for both Dallas and Chris Braswell, number 41, and we'll talk about Chris throughout the draft process as well. But man, he played out of his mind. And this is a legit Georgia team, not the Georgia offensive line we've perhaps seen in recent years, but they ain't a bunch of one stars out there playing offensive tackle. So he did a great job. The athleticism and space flashed, and he's a big part of what they do. All right. Oh, I have him as a top 10 pick, easy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I
If
want
Will
to say.
went 3 overall, this kid will be in the top 10.
And I will say another sneak peek at my mock draft on Thursday. I had him going top 10, so rest assured about that. Something that may anger people: Brock Bowers lasted until the middle of the first round, but I can explain that away on Thursday. So that's called a tease, Rick.
All right.
Next up,
I don't even want to look at your mock draft.
yeah, don't look at it. You may
I'm
have to
just
look at
gonna
it today.
I'm not going to do any prep. I'm just going to react off of what I see.
And I've typically found that goes really well when you and I have these type of conversations. So we should be good to go. All right, let's go to Florida State. Shout out to Danny and BMAC. I had heard about this guy, but I hadn't watched him. I had no idea about anything about him. Western Michigan transfer, and he is awesome. Braden Fisk, number 55, plays all up and down the offensive line. A lot of 3 tech. He even lines up at 5 technique sometimes. Incredible athlete. Like, you see that guy walking around. He had no nameplate on the back of his jersey, just his number. Like, he was like Rudy Rudiger coming out there. You didn't know who he was, and then he's just taken over. The last 2 plays of the game, last 2 series of the games, he had 4th down sacks to seal that win over Louisville, and he did it in athletic fashion. He is stout against double teams. I don't mean he stands up against double teams. He's splitting double teams and making plays in the backfield. He reminds me, and this is unfair because he's white and he's undersized, of Howard Cross out of Notre Dame. And I know that's lazy, but that's where my mind went initially. He's a better player than Howard Cross, but Howard Cross is fun as well. But Braden Fisk impressed me a ton in this game, to the point where I would imagine he's going to be getting some serious buzz as we get through this process.
Yeah, I didn't know who this kid was, and then Debo pulled one out of his arse. But this kid, but when you went back and watched the tape on this kid, I mean, he had no buzz, and I haven't heard, so I don't know if he played like this the whole season. So I want to go back and see him against some legit offensive linemen that are going to be playing in the NFL. Although I don't know that if the ACC has any legit offensive. Just
Ouch.
kidding.
Ouch.
Not like the SEC in the Big Ten, but that's why Florida State didn't get to the Final Four.
Oh, just taking shots at kicking them while they're down.
No, they deserve to get in too. Everybody deserved to get in.
Everyone gets a trophy, Rick.
Everybody gets a participation trophy. But the all his sacks came on an ET game, which means the defensive end came in first and then he looped around. But his quick twitch getting around, his ability to chase down the quarterback. Now, Plummer isn't a great scrambler, but to get him and shag him down in open field and the quickness that he showed getting off the ball, I don't know if he's going to be able to sit there and 2-gap at the point at the next level. But I know if he fits in the right scheme and he has that quick first step that he's shown, I don't know his measurables. I don't know anything about this kid. But when you watch this tape, the energy, the effort, the pursuit, the flashes of pass rusher. I think that game there will put him on some people's radar to maybe make sure we go back and do our homework on him. And me and you both need to go back and do our homework on this kid.
Too late to have him going first overall. I didn't look it up until afterwards because that's the Rick Spielman way. 6'3", 282 unofficially. So he's a little undersized if you're playing interior.
Right.
But you're not playing him at 5 unless he's rotational, though, right?
If he's a 5 technique, that may be big enough. You don't have to be 300 pounds. It's if you're in there, and we saw some 3 techniques. Cansey last year was an undersized guy. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to make any comments on this kid until I go back and really study him. But when you have a game like this, it sure does make you want to put that name on a piece of paper to make sure you go back and watch him and see.
Absolutely. So we'll do that. But that was fun. And good for him. Bad for FSU for various reasons, but he had a solid game, no doubt about it. All right, let's go to Washington. Out in the Northwest, they beat Oregon again. Another great game. I haven't gone back and watched the quarterbacks yet, but we watched them so much that I feel like we know who they are. Someone we haven't watched a lot of because he's been injured is one of the thousands of wide receivers that Michael Penix Jr. has. Jalen McMillan had a season-long knee injury. He hurt it early versus Michigan State. You and I were talking yesterday, Rick, and he only played a handful of snaps between then and relatively recently. But he showed up in that conference title game. 9 catches, 131 yards. Almost had a touchdown on a back shoulder throw that we've seen Michael Penix throw to Odunze a million times this year. Didn't pull it down to contested catch, but he came back later and made some contested catches. He shows some juice in the open field. He shows the ability to stack these defensive backs and find ways to get open. They use him a lot on over routes, and he was running open on those routes. So you have him, you have Rome Odunze, you have Jalen Polk, all guys who could be top 50, top 75 picks. I'm sure we'll hear about how that makes Michael Penix a better player. But what'd you learn about Jalen McMillan and the rare chance we got to see him this year?
Yeah, well, he looked completely healthy. You've seen the athleticism. You've seen before the injury. You've seen the speed. For a tall, linear receiver, I don't think he's as physical or as strong as Odunze, but he is very smooth athletically. The way he runs routes, the way he opens up stride and gets open down the field, his catching radius. And I was surprised for a guy that is linear and is, I'm assuming he's 6'3", at least that's what he looks like on tape, that he's very smooth with the ball in his hands after the catch. Very elusive, fluid, weaver, whatever. He makes guys miss after the catch, not with his strength where Odunze runs through dudes. This guy can avoid dudes, and I think he has some acceleration that all of a sudden that put him back on the map to get in the mix of these glutton of receivers that are going to have to separate themselves out through this draft process.
Oh my gosh, I feel like there's so many. I had middle to early day 2 right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%, Ryan.
Who knows what you're talking about over there? Yeah, great game for Jalen. Glad he's healthy. Hope he stays healthy because they're going to need it when they. I hope they win the whole thing just to stick it into you and Debo's face, disrespecting Washington, leaving them out of the top 4 altogether. Unbelievable.
That was do you think that had anything to do with a sentimental pick? But they did beat Oregon.
They were undefeated.
Oh, so was Florida State.
Well, they don't have anyone injured. That's the excuse they were making for Florida State. They still got
Right.
Michael Penix Jr. and all their dudes, and they beat Oregon twice.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I could see, but because the Pac-12 is dissolving, disintegrating, going extinct, whatever you want to say it.
Yeah.
So it's almost fitting in a Hallmark storybook type story that the last year of the Pac-12 actually had a team that was good enough to make it to the Final Four.
I hope they win it. That would be the storybook ending. Again, at Hallmark Lover 420 if you're looking for Rick Spielman on Twitter. Let me ask you this quickly. My buddy, who was an ardent Alabama fan and was trying to make his case for why Alabama deserved to be in, asked me this question, and I didn't off the top of my head, but I guessed. Of all the players that get drafted in 142 days, which conference has the most? Pac-12, SEC,
Yes.
or Big Ten?
SEC.
Pac-12 is deep.
Oh, this year you're talking about?
Just this year, yeah. Just
historically.
No, this year. I said Pac-12 maybe by a hair. I think it could be because they got some dudes out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you on that. I'd have to, after I look through all your mock and all your works, then I'll tell you where you're right and wrong. That's what I did when I was a GM. Okay, guys, do what you guys do. Get all your reports in, and I'll fix it at the end.
Yeah, don't bring me the first draft. Bring me the final draft, and then you'll.
And then I'll redraft, fix it.
Okay, all right, we'll circle back there, because typically you say SEC and get on with it. But I think this year for the Pac-12, they may have a case. All right, let's go to Michigan, because the Iowa game. My new favorite player is Deacon Hill, the heavyset quarterback for Iowa. He's fun, and I mean that in the most lovable sense. But let's talk about the guy on the other side of the ball, Mike Sanderstill, the nickelback, who actually played a lot of outside in this game for Michigan. We talked about him last Thursday in the preview, former wide receiver, and he looks like it. He has ball skills. He's undersized. I don't know his exact height or weight, but he flies around like he means business when he comes downhill, both in run support, but also in tackling and breaking on routes that are in front of him. He forced 2 fumbles in this game. He almost had an interception. And this shows up week after week after week. And he's a little older, I believe. He might be 22, 23-ish. I have to double check on that. I don't care. He's a guy that feels like, I don't know if I mentioned last Thursday, but my comp for him was a Mike Hilton type player who's been really successful for Pittsburgh and now Cincinnati as a slot corner. But again, you can play Sanderstill everywhere. What'd you think of Mikey Sanderstill?
Yeah, no, a couple of those, the forced fumbles, the one he came up and whacked the dude after the catch to force a fumble. And then, he came on that cap blitzer with the corner blitzes. He had free access, but he was a humming.
He was a humming, Devo. Love
it. Coming off the edge there and had a couple of nice hits on the quarterback. I saw the break on the hitch route, which was a great break. So I think this kid's still probably an early Saturday guy.
You think so? How come?
Because is he a Nick? I know it's still new, the position. But he is developing. I just think maybe Friday, but I'm leaning towards Saturday right now, just because I think technically he still has some issues to deal with. And I don't think he's totally there to say that, okay, I draft this guy, he's going to be my nickel starter right away, which I usually put in the 3rd round. I think he still has some development. He's more talented to make a team. And I think he's going to help a team. I just think it's going to take him a little bit more time.
Let me ask you this question in terms of the evaluation process. When you're a general manager, you know what your needs are, obviously, going into the draft and the free agency and all that. Do you look around the division and say, well, we got to go against Devontae Adams, and they've added Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, for example? Let's assume all those guys are still in Green Bay. Does that inform your decision to draft a nickel cornerback maybe a round earlier than you might, or no?
No, you don't move them up, but you're also aware of who you got to play twice a year too.
Right.
So,
okay.
But you're not going to take a guy that's a 7th rounder and make him a 2nd rounder because you're playing against, the way Green Bay's young guys are coming along right now.
Yeah.
They still have to have the ability of where they're drafted. And
I was just thinking in Mikey's case, and by the way, he spells it M-I-K-E, but he pronounces it Mikey, which I sort of like. In Mikey's case, with all these deep wide receivers in the league, young ones, and the ones coming out that we keep talking about, if maybe a team's like, you know what, we'll take him a half round to a round early. We like him. He's undersized.
You're not talking about jumping him 2 rounds up. So I think it depends on how your board is finally developed and what other opportunities or players are available at the time.
All right, Mikey just turned 23, and he's unofficially listed at 5'9", 184. So take that for what it's worth. All right.
That's what I'm taking it for, what it's worth.
What'd you say? How much?
4th.
Okay. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about another 5'9" guy, according to Pete Prisco, our 5'10", 201-pound quarterback in Carolina. Bryce Young. We'll talk about the other rookie quarterbacks and how they performed right after this.
A Game of Honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA. Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
All right, Rick. Let's go to Carolina. First game in the post-Frank Reich era. Chris Tabor, the special teams coordinator, was the interim head coach. Thomas Brown is back again calling plays. and they must listen to this podcast because it felt like they used some RPOs. They used a little more motion, at least early. Bryce looked a little more comfortable somehow. Weird.
Play action and got him out outside the pocket a little bit.
The second throw of the game, 3rd and 10, throws a huge anticipation corner route to Jonathan Mingo. And look, I don't want to spend the rest. I've dumped on Jonathan Mingo a lot this fall. He's a rookie. He's learning.
Better.
He's getting better. But that ball hit him in the hands and he dropped it.
Yeah.
But that's not on Bryce. And Mingo came back and made some plays as well. But this entire game was littered with throws that we saw Bryce make it, Alabama. He still leaves the pocket too early sometimes. I get that. That last interception to end the game, he had Thielen earlier in that route on 4th down, and he didn't pull the trigger. And when he tried to do it later, it was a little, a little reverse route, and then he tried to turn it upfield, and he threw an interception because he threw it too deep.
Yeah, but I understand why he threw it. He should have threw it earlier. I agree with you. The reason he threw it was because it was 4th and 1, and he was going to get sacked. So
yeah, if you just throw it on the initial outbreak, you're fine.
But I can understand. I'd rather at least put it up there and see what happens at the end of the game like that, because it was right outside the 2-minute, and it was 4th and 1. Because if I take a sack, then we don't have any chance.
That's
so
correct.
You threw the ball up. You had a chance, even though, Winfield did a great job on the break and making the interception.
Another young man that you've known since high school. You know all these kids. But that said, look, man.
6 years old.
Oh, 6. All right. There's so many good throws from Bryce. This game had more good Bryce throws than any that I can remember this season.
And he missed some too. You got to be fair. He did miss some.
He did. No, he did. No, he had the intentional grounding one was terrible. The one he threw behind the line of scrimmage, was a 10-yard loss and a fumble was even worse. You'd like to see him calm down with those. But the end of the game before the interception, they rushed 6 guys. He stood in the pocket, hit DJ Shark on that vertical route down the sideline. It's a little underthrown, but DJ had won so well that it didn't matter. The cornerback didn't have time to turn around, and that's what we haven't been seeing. So all told, this is Bryce's best game. Still only 15 of 31, 178 in the interception. So there's a ton of room for improvement. But I think at least, Rick, you would agree that felt like some sort of progress?
I do.
Okay. That's it? Nothing else on Bryce?
No, he's getting better. I mean, we talk about him every week. We talk about the issues. We talk about why. I mean, it's a broken record, but the one thing is exciting is they did some things that he did at Alabama that he's good at. And then it showed up in the game.
All right, I agree. All right, good job, Bryce. Keep getting better. Throw some touchdowns. How about that? Next up, C.J. Stroud. Again, he's in the MVP conversation. He may not win it, but he's solidly in that conversation. 16 of 27 for 274 against the Broncos. The Broncos they had quite the run there. They were plus 13 on the turnover differential when they were winning these games, I think 4 or 5 in a row. This time around, they ended up losing the ball a lot, in part because of a guy we'll talk about in a moment, Will Anderson. But Russ had 3 interceptions, and a great play by Derek Stingley a couple times on those interceptions. But CJ had a touchdown. His deep ball is insane.
Yeah. No, he's playing extremely well. Now, I will say this. There were a couple throws early in the game, like a boot pass out to his left that he missed.
Yeah.
But then I saw him call the same play maybe a quarter and a half later, and it was a great throw. So I thought he missed some open air targets.
He missed Mechie for a touchdown at the end of the first half. Wide ass open.
Yeah, but he just keeps going. I mean, nothing phases him.
Nothing phases him. I almost had another fantastic touchdown in the back of the end zone to Nico Collins. Just went off Nico's hands about 2 inches outside probably. But time and time again, he doesn't get flustered. He drew the personal foul penalty against Alex Singleton, which was smart.
Yep.
Didn't retaliate, kept that drive going. And here's the thing I'll say about the Broncos. And shout out to Vance Joseph for keeping his job and turning that defense around. They were heating up CJ early, which is something that CJ hadn't seen a lot in early downs. And he stood in there, made throws that we've seen him make all season, and he continues to be not only the best quarterback in this class, but one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. No, he's the future is bright for this young man.
Also, this is probably unfair to Frank Reich because I would imagine owner David Tepper is just watching CJ going, why don't we have this? CJ is a unicorn. It is. I don't even know when's the last time a rookie quarterback did this. Not even Andrew Luck had this sort of success this early. I don't think. I have to go back and double check, but it just feels like week in and week out they're putting the team on his shoulders and he's doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah, no, and that's like I said. What would have happened if he would have showed this mobility and athleticism during his last year at Ohio State?
Yeah, that's what Frank Reich's screaming into the mirror right now. All right, next up, Will Levis against the Colts, a game they lost in overtime because Gardner Minshew. I like to call Jameis Winston YOLO Jameis. You know what the kids mean when they say YOLO, Rick?
No, have no idea.
You only live once, YOLO.
I don't know all those things. Like when people send me like capitalized letters, I have no idea
Capitalized
what half
letters.
of them say when someone texts me something.
Yeah, so YOLO, you only live once means you might as well do it, see what happens. So I think YOLO Gardner is going to be his new name because he will do anything and he does not care. And it worked out a lot in this game. So credit to him for that. Before we talk about Will Levis, have you ever at any level, happy birthday, by the way, during your several decades on this planet, seen this type of special teams mistakes that the Titans made in that game?
No, it was actually, I won't say entertaining. It made the game it was like, I can't believe this is happening. And then you see it again. And then you miss the field goal or the extra point, whatever it was at the end there, because the kicker's leg is wrapped around his neck as they take him back into the
that poor guy. The thing is, Ryan Stonehouse is one of the best players on that team. His leg got absolutely obliterated because I don't even know what happened there, but I've never seen a block punt that blocked after the snap. Crazy. All right.
Hence the change in special teams coaches this week.
I was shocked it took that long. I think it took about 8 or 9 hours. I thought it might happen in 8 or 9 minutes. Will Levis, the first play of the game, rolled right and hit a Quantico on that anticipation corner throw for 39 yards. That was nice and easy. But a lot like Carolina, it feels like Tennessee struggles with guys getting open at the top of Will Levis's drop, and that's no big surprise. DeAndre Hopkins is the go-to guy there. He's not going to win with separation a lot. He's going to win with contested catches and savvy. One of the words that I keep coming back to when I watch Will Levis is frenetic. Like it feels like everything. I wish he could just take a deep breath and slow down a little bit, but that's not his style. We saw that at Kentucky. I feel like he's getting better, but I still don't know who he is. I say this every week.
I can tell you what he is.
Okay, what?
And I have never seen a more competitive quarterback and how he is winning over that locker room.
Oh, okay.
Into a couple of I've never seen a quarterback fumble the ball. It goes downfield 10 yards. He's the only one chasing it.
That was awesome.
He knocks out. He hits the safety and the safety fumbles it and he recovers it. I was going back through my Rolodex. I don't think in 30 some years I've ever seen a play like that. But when your quarterback does stuff like that on the field, or the world, diving on 3rd and 5 to get the first down, and he
helicopter like John Elway.
It got helicoptered when he hit. That stuff is.
Oh, wait a second, Rick. Did you see what he did so he's on the ground after the helicopter. He looks up at the line. He sees that he made it. He gives the first down sign. Then he stands up and he flexes like a meathead, like he's Rick Spielman in the 80s. So that gets the team going?
I think it does. I think those guys see how competitive he is, but I give the kid credit because I've never seen a play like that ever.
That was awesome.
Yeah. So that, to me, I have a different view of him from a competitive standpoint. I still think he's mechanical. A lot of things that you say, he makes NFL throws, but I still think he needs time to get through his progressions. I still think he needs to learn how to put some touch on some throws because everything's going to be 90 miles an hour, especially the deep balls. A couple of times, and Bryce did this too, is when they throw the ball down the field, it's out of bounds. Keep it in bounds and at least give the receiver an opportunity to try to make a play. So a couple, that stuff, hopefully it get better as he goes. But from him selling himself as one tough SOB by the effort he did on a couple of those plays, that's going to resonate in that locker room with a lot of those players.
It's funny because those plays are great. And he was throwing lasers mostly on
I
7
watched
routes.
it 4 times to figure out what the hell happened. I'm not seeing this the right way. And I saw it live and I was like, Was that an interception or I
So
don't know.
yeah, I think the ball got tipped, like as he was throwing it, and went straight up, and the safety caught it. Is that right?
Yeah, he laid out and caught it. And then Will Levis is already down 10 yards down the field, hit the safety. Blackman, I believe it was. And he fumbled, and then Will Levis recovered it. He recovered his own fumble 10 yards down the field after he tried to throw it.
Yeah, that was fun. And there was a shot on the broadcast where early in the game, probably in the first half, Levis, D-Hop was John at Levis about something, probably a misthrow or whatever. And Levis actually came right back at him. So I think that probably engendered some respect as well, maybe even from DeAndre Hopkins, but from other people that said, this guy's our leader and he's not going to take any guff from anyone.
He does. He has some, what do they say in their neck? He has some of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a one tough hombre, as Mr. Spielman likes to say. All right, speaking of tough hombres, let's talk about our top 5 rookies from Week 13. I don't know if you looked at the rundown, Rick, but I'll give you how I graded them. We'll go from 1 to
rundown. Do you actually guys give a rundown?
Oh, Debo didn't send it to you. He doesn't want to send it to you anymore. So we'll go 1 through 5, our top 5 players.
You and Debo's top
5? No Jalen Carter this week. Yeah, Debo don't want to talk about the Eagles this week, Rick. 1 and 1A for me. And number 1 is Will Anderson, and 1A is CJ Stroud. Again, this draft class is stacked, and that's not even including Tank Dell, who, again, got hurt in that game. He's done for the regular season. And Juice Scruggs, who's back, the interior offensive lineman out of Debo's Penn State. But Will Anderson, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, 1 pass breakup. That 1 PBU ended up being the tip pass that became an interception for Derek Stingley. Mike McGlinchey had himself a long day at right tackle for Denver. And we talked about Dallas Turner and his bull rush. Will Anderson's bull rush is no slouch. And he is twitched up. He's running stunts. He's winning through the A gap on these stunts. I would imagine Russ Wilson was tired of seeing Will Anderson by the end of the thing because he picked himself off the turf plenty. This guy, and I'll just go back to what our buddy Pete Prisco said, that he thought he was just going to be a good edge rusher. He feels like he has exceeded that already.
Yeah, and the one play, like I always try to fly. You can look at, I see all the plays you see, but I try to find something different. The one play that really stuck out to me the most, because I love watching guys that play with passion and play with energy and play with effort. There's no question Will Anderson does that. He rushed over McGlinchey, the right offensive tackle, got a pressure. Russell Wilson scrambled upfield on the left side of the field, and he chased him down from behind. So he must have ran 60 yards that play. But that tells you the effort that this kid plays with, not only the athleticism and speed to run down Russell Wilson, who's not this, what he was maybe 6 years ago, but to come all the way around a formation, come all the way to the other side of the field and run him down from behind. That told me what kind of passion and player that Will Anderson is.
A couple of notes here. He could have had 4 sacks. I thought he had 2. And towards the end of the game, he had a bull rush against McGlinchey where he got so far underneath his pads, he literally launched McGlinchey, who probably weighs 320, into Russ's lap.
Yeah. No.
And, we talked about Will Anderson weighing 245-ish or whatever coming out. I don't know what he weighs now. He's more than that?
Yeah, he was 255. He's the same as Dallas.
Oh, okay. All right. Whatever he is, he plays much stronger than that. So he was my 1. Do you have any issue with me ranking him as a 1 as opposed to CJ Stroud 1A?
I would put Will. Yeah, I do have an issue with another player that should be up there, but we'll talk about him shortly.
What about this ranking, though? Will over CJ just by a hair?
Yes.
Not okay with that?
Not by a hair. I think Will was number 1 clear cut.
Oh, okay, great. And CJ said after the game how big that defense played.
And I am going to say this. If he continues on this path, the way he's playing and has this type of production down the stretch, I'm going to make him his favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I like it. Devin Witherspoon's had a good season, but the Seahawks are hit some struggles recently, so I don't hate that. By the way, DJ Turner is another guy we haven't talked yet about who almost made this list, the Michigan cornerback who ran in the 4.2s. He's having a great season for Cincinnati.
Yep. Yeah.
Big game.
He played big last night.
Big game on Monday night. I mean, he was flying around like he was Will Anderson out there coming downhill. All right. Number 3. I'm guessing this is where you draw the line because it can't be number 4 on this list, knowing you. Sam Laporta, 9 catches, 140 yards, touchdown against New Orleans. They were up 400-0 in the first half, and then they sort of fell asleep and held on to win at the end there. They lined him up everywhere, which they've been doing the whole time. 9 targets, 9 catches. That's how efficient Sam Laporta is. What else is there to say about Sam Laporta? Should have been a first-round pick, and it just goes to show that it's sometimes hard to evaluate guys who play at Iowa because that Iowa offense isn't one that makes it easy to evaluate pass catchers. Sam Laporta is awesome.
Okay, let me give you some why I think he was 1 or 1B.
Okay.
Because on 3rd and 6, that was a 12-yard touchdown. On 3rd and 3, he caught or 3rd and 2, he caught a flat route to convert a first down. On 3rd and 5, he had an in route, he beat man coverage, first down. Late in the game, 3rd and 7 to keep the clock moving, beat man coverage, caught an in route, first down. This kid, you look at the stats, but you look at when are those stats happening. And 4 times in critical situations in the game, he came up with big plays. So to me, not only is he having a productive year, but golf.
I thought you were changing subjects.
Yeah, Jared Goff has an unbelievable trust in this kid, and the coaching staff do, because they're calling this kid's number, and you think it would be St. Brown or somebody like that. But when they need to convert a 3rd down, and especially in the critical in that late catch in the game that converted to 3rd and 7, not that they weren't going to win the game, but that sure helped them solidify the win. So when he makes those type of catches in the critical situations during a game, to me, that's why I even moved him up higher, because of that. Not because of just the stats. And he gives unbelievable effort as a blocker.
Yeah. No, you're not getting much pushback from me. He had a great game. He's had a great season. And,
but do you agree with me that you got to look at the production, but you look at, are they in critical situations?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean,
difference maker to me.
Yeah. And I mean, so who are you putting him ahead of, Will or CJ?
Him and Will are right up there. CJ's behind them.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what you feel about this one. Number 4, Puka Spielman Nakua, 4 catches, 105 yards, 2 rushes for 34 yards. Had a run play, 2 end arounds. Another end around went for 45, but they called it back because of holding. I don't know why this guy runs a 4.2 when he ran a 4.55 officially, or
Did
whatever
you see
he ran.
Right down the middle of the field on that seam route. He just ran through the secondary, and this is a good learning experience. Is that if a guy doesn't run fast but he plays fast, there's 2 different times. And I was wrong, but this kid plays a lot faster than he ran.
And that play call you're talking about was late in the first quarter, made it 10-7 Rams, 70 yards, dead sprint, no one could catch him. And it looked like, so Jim Schwartz, defensive coordinator, who's done a great job there, on 3rd downs, they get funky, and a lot of times they like to run that inverted cover 2. So the outside corners sort of move inside.
Yeah.
They were there too late. And once they got there late, Puka Spielman's off. Like, you're not catching them.
No. And you got to give credit where credit's due. And the 7 route he made, the little corner route where he adjusted behind them to went up and get the ball. He is a very good, much better football player than maybe an athletic test guy in the pre-draft process. So this is a prime example of making sure that you don't put too much weight into the you have to look at it, but this guy is an exception to the rule as far as being a better football player than he is an athlete.
Did you guys have any statistical measure for figuring that stuff out, or you just had to eyeball it?
You go off your experience and what you're seeing.
Because I know you got the guys, and
he's an exception to the rule because
100%.
Yeah. So when you're asking yourself in that draft room, so when I'm sitting in the corner and I say, Mr. Wilson, do you think this guy is an exception to the rule? Because you can't have 53 exceptions to the rule on your roster. You're not going to win a game.
Yeah.
But if there are specific guys that the area scout is really dead set and really believes in this kid, that's when you kind of gotta listen, and especially the more you evaluate, the more you do. And a guy like a Puka, if we missed on him, we would be back studying his tape from BYU. Why didn't we see what we're seeing now in the NFL? Or we would have our analytics look at it. What are we missing in the analytics side of it? Was it something in the testing, psychological testing? Was it something in a physical testing? What was it? Was it the medical? Were we too hard on him on the medical because he had durability concerns coming out? What did we miss?
Yeah. Because when you go back to the Senior Bowl, while we're sitting there watching the wide receivers, he was there, but he was another guy. He felt like sort of a Andrew Shebus, who was drafted by the Bengals out of Princeton. Just a good athlete that had some upside. We'll see. A big receiver. Rashid Rice was there. Dontavius Wicks was there.
But that's why you go back and say, okay, what did we miss?
Yeah.
Was it something in the testing? Was it something in the intelligence? Was it the mental quickness? Whatever it was, you really go back and hash, or because this guy is an exception to probably the rule on being a better football, just a really good football player, and don't get so tied up in the Olympics that sometimes we get tied up in.
I'm going to chalk it up to Nakua dogging it for the last 4 years and then finally turning it on once he got drafted by the Rams. That can be the only explanation because he's a first round talent, man. It's crazy. All right, number 5 on the list, Devon Achane. He's back against the Commanders, a team that really had no answers, to the point that Mike White, the backup quarterback, was playing for most of the fourth quarter. 17 rushes for Devon, 73 rushing yards, had 2 touchdowns, shortest touchdowns near the goal line, 3 receptions for 30 yards. We talk about it all the time when we talk about Achane. He runs between the tackles. He runs hard between the tackles. He gets yard between the tackles, and then he has that juice to get outside, and we saw that. And in that Miami offense, it even amplifies the things that he does well because they're so good.
Even in a probably not ideal weather conditions.
Right.
But he looked like he was healthy again. And I won't call him a mud game, but it was, like I said, it was wet, rainy, cold, whatever it was. He didn't bounce everything to the outside. And it's the same thing we saw in college, is that he runs for a small back. He runs with a lot more power than you think he runs, and he's always going forward on contact. And he's not afraid to get hit. In fact, sometimes some of those runs, I thought he was the hammer rather than the nail.
Absolutely.
And he caught the ball well. You know, he's another really good football player.
Really good football player. Trademark Rick Spielman. All right.
Next version coming up in January of Just Good Football Players 2.0.
Oh.
Debo, do we want to take a break or do we want to keep going?
Let's break.
All right, take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll hit the updated draft order and focus on what the old New York Jets should do right after this.
Wake up to football highlights and news from around the world with the one and only Morning Footy Team.
Rise and shine, football fans. Welcome to Morning Footy.
Start your all-day football craze with Morning Footy, part of the all-new Golazo Network.
All right, Rick. Draft order has been updated. At the top, still the Chicago Bears by way of the Carolina Panthers.
A little late, Debo, but thank you.
Then you have the New England Patriots. And my goodness, what a sad sack of an organization. It's so crazy to say out loud. The Arizona Cardinals actually hurt themselves by beating the Steelers that are out of the Marvin Harrison race. Maybe there's 2 teams that traded for quarterbacks, and Arizona will be fine there. Washington's number 4. Chicago, with their current pick, is at number 5. And then the Jets at 6. 7 are the Giants, 8 Tennessee, 9 New Orleans, and 10 Tampa Bay. So this feels like a situation, if you're the New York Jets, where you are going to be perfectly positioned to get an offensive tackle. And then the question becomes who's going to be there, whether it's Fashanu or whether it's Joe Alt. But I would imagine, even if it's J.C. Latham, who only plays right tackle, any of those names, you have to take it, or are you wavering if, say, a Drake May slips to number 6?
You're the Jets?
And you're the Jets, picking number 6 right now.
Yeah, well, Drake May to me would be a no-brainer because you got to have a succession plan if Aaron Rodgers just comes back for one more year.
Let me push back on that because this is what I've been saying a lot now when we talk about these things. You can have a succession plan, but if you have a Carolina Panthers plan, your quarterback's going to get murdered because the offensive line stinks. There are no wide receivers on this Jets team outside of Garrett Wilson. The defense is really good, but what are your plans for those sort of concerns?
Well, you're going to try to address all those needs, but you can't pass up a Drake May. I mean, is Aaron Rodgers going to be there in the next 10 years? No.
No.
So you better have a plan in place. And if it's great where he can sit and learn, we're seeing the only team that really does this, it has done a phenomenal job, has been the Green Bay Packers, because from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, who sat for 3 years, and now we're seeing the evolution of Jordan Love, the way he's played the last 3 weeks. And it's great for those guys to sit. So to get a Drake May and to potentially have him sit, to learn behind Aaron Rodgers for a year. But I think me and you can agree that probably Zach Wilson has seen his last days in a New York Jets uniform after this season.
Well, there was a report that they may go back to him because they cut Tim Boyle and he may not want to go out back out there. Robert Saleh had to come out and say that's not true. Either way, that's not something you want to be floating out there. But yes, to answer your question, I think Zach Wilson has probably played his last game for the Jets.
Right. And I don't think Fashanu will fall down that far to him. And then Alt may not either. Because, hey, Debo, while you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs, can you put that back up? The top 10 in the
current draft order graphic.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do have a rundown.
Coup meetings. I don't get anything here. I just try to react. That's what I'm spontaneous.
Yeah.
It all depends what Chicago does with that first pick, because let's say they go, we're going to keep Justin Fields and go with Marvin Harrison Jr., or they say we're going to take Caleb Williams. Then all of a sudden, the way this board falls, I can't wait to see the hot mess that you're going to present on Thursday.
Let me just say this. Much like you said last year about the Houston Texans, the New England Patriots, if they're number 2, cannot, under any circumstance, come out of this draft without a quarterback. Is that correct?
I would say that's very correct. But
Okay.
I'm looking at this, this rundown that first time I've seen this.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, let's take this example. Okay. So let's say Chicago goes with the quarterback. New England goes with a quarterback. Arizona goes with Marvin Harrison.
Yep.
Washington's going to take Fashanu.
Yep.
Then Chicago, since Marvin Harrison isn't there, is going to take Alt.
They may take Dallas Turner could be in play here too. They like their offensive tackles.
Oh, okay. We'll see how much they like them.
Okay.
But let's say they went. That's what you do. Okay. I'm just a scout in the corner, but I'm going to put you in that scenario.
I love that you tell me how mock drafts work.
And Alt goes to Chicago. Now, what are you going to do?
Right. Then you, I mean, that's easy. I mean, you're not going to take Roma Dunze here because you need wide receivers. You're taking Drake May or Jaden Daniels. What about Jaden Daniels if you're the Jets?
Boy, do you have him up that high? We shall see. We shall see.
Let's put it to you this way. Let me put it to you this way. What if you get Greg Roman and Jaden Daniels in New York for the Jets?
Who?
Lamar Jackson's OC, Greg Roman. His first 5 years in the league when they had success. Is that too much change?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot to discuss between now and then. I don't want to get into Thursday's podcast on your mock draft, but I'm just saying there are different scenarios that you better be playing through your mind. That if I'm sitting in the corner next to the owner in the back of the room while you're up there piddling your thumbs, watch what this guy does now.
Watch this idiot right now. All right, listen, let me we'll just tease this. You don't have to, you can just give a facial expression if you want. I'll explain to people who are listening. How close is Drake May and Jaden Daniels in your mind? That's a not close face. Okay. Other thing to consider, the Jets have the 6th pick as we sit here. They don't have a 2nd round pick. I'm guessing that's part of the Aaron Rodgers deal. They don't pick again until 72 in the 3rd round. So you can take this quarterback here, Drake May, if he's there. Who are you getting at 72 to protect Drake May or Aaron Rodgers or whomever? Or draft a wide receiver to fix that?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll just go do something in free agency and sign a tackle.
And then, of course, the other option is to trade down a few spots and get a couple more picks. And I'm guessing you would consider that too, depending on how everything stacks up.
Unless there's a blue chipper, never pass a blue chipper.
All right, Debo, never pass the blue chipper.
Oh my God, this scout in the corner role that I got to play is very frustrating.
Your contract's up this year too. We're gonna have a long conversation. Do scouts renegotiate, or do you just bring them in and they sign a sheet of paper? How does that work?
No, I negotiated with everybody.
Oh, okay. Because they typically don't have agents, correct?
No.
Yeah. When the only time you don't have to deal with agents in your real job. All right, that's a wrap. Unless you have any other nuggets of wisdom you want to share before we get out of here.
Oh no, it's plenty for one day.
Yeah, and we're going to see each other in a couple hours on HQ. So if people like what they see here, they can watch us yell at each other on HQ. All right, that's a wrap. Debo will not be here Thursday, but we'll have producer Harry here. So you have that to look forward to. Episode 103 is in the books. Thanks to all you guys who watch and listen and comment. As always, thanks to my guy Rick. Thanks to Debo. We'll see you guys here on Thursday to talk mock draft.